Biblical stories often hold secrets and mysteries that continue to captivate scholars and faithful alike through the ages. One of the most enigmatic themes is the account of the sons of fallen angels, also known in some biblical versions as the Nephilim and giants. Who are these beings? What was their role in the ancient world? And what can we learn from these narratives for today? In the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, it is written that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and took them as wives, resulting in offspring who became the heroes of old, men of renown. The identity of these sons of God has been a point of debate among scholars, but many believe they refer to angels who fell in disobedience to God. Enticed by the beauty of human women, their descendants, the Nephilim, are described as giants, powerful and imposing beings, a blend of divine and human that brought chaos and corruption to the world. The hidden truths about the Nephilim go far beyond what most people imagine. These beings were not merely giants in stature, but also in influence. They were responsible for spreading practices that led humanity astray from God's paths, such as idolatry, bloodshed, and immorality. The presence of the Nephilim was one of the reasons God decided to send the flood, a drastic measure to cleanse the earth of the evil that had spread. However, the Nephilim did not completely disappear after the flood. In Numbers, chapter 13, verse 33, when the Israelite spies were sent to explore the land of Canaan, they reported seeing descendants of the Nephilim, referring to them as giants that made the Israelites feel like grasshoppers in comparison. This suggests that somehow the genes of the Nephilim persisted even after God's judgment. The scriptures do not detail how this happened, but theories suggest that some Nephilim lineages survived, or that the fallen angels repeated their corrupt actions in a new generation. Regardless of the case, the impact of these beings was so significant that even today they are mentioned in legends and mythologies across various cultures. One of the most surprising truths about the offspring of fallen angels is that they represent the ongoing battle between good and evil. In many accounts, we see these beings attempting to establish dominion over the earth, counter to divine plans. Their actions reveal the constant temptation to lead humanity away from its original purpose, creating a division between what is sacred and what is profane. This struggle between celestial forces and the powers of darkness continues to resonate in our times. The story of the Nephilim teaches us about the importance of resisting temptations that draw us away from God, and the need to remain steadfast in our faith, even in the face of powerful influences that seek to destroy us. In the end, the story of the Nephilim reminds us of God's sovereignty. Despite the influence and power of these beings, they could not thwart divine plans. The flood was evidence that God has ultimate control over creation and that He will not allow evil to triumph forever. The hidden truths about the Nephilim reveal a much more complex and profound picture than most traditional accounts convey. Although often described simply as giants, these beings had a far-reaching and disturbing impact on the earth. The influence of the Nephilim was not limited to their imposing stature, but extended to practices and behaviors that subverted morality and God's ways, leading to unprecedented corruption and ultimately the necessity of the flood. According to Genesis 6, 1-4, the Nephilim were descendants of the union between the sons of God and the daughters of men. While the term Nephilim is frequently translated by many scholars as giants, and by others as fallen, or those who lost their moral elevation or status, their implications go beyond mere physical dimensions. These beings were described as heroes of old, men of renown. But their fame was not confined to their physical feats. Their presence was marked by practices that corrupted the spirit and morality of humanity, leading it away from divine principles. One of the main contributions of the Nephilim to Earth's decline was the spread of idolatry. The belief in gods and pagan cults was widely promoted by them, establishing religious systems that competed with the worship of the true God. The introduction of images and cults of false gods diverted worship that should have been exclusive to God, leading to a vast proliferation of pagan practices and immoral rituals. The Nephilim, with their influence over the tribes and peoples of the time, helped to consolidate the worship of deities that promoted behaviors contrary to biblical principles. In addition to idolatry, the Nephilim were also involved in ritualistic practices that included human sacrifices. The Bible does not extensively detail how these practices were carried out, but ancient texts and traditions link the Nephilim to sacrifices and offerings of human life. Pagan worship of false gods often included sacrifices to appease deities, and the practice of cruel rituals may have been encouraged by these fallen beings. Such expiatory ceremonies not only symbolized a form of worship, but also reflected the increasing violence and cruelty that permeated society at that time. Immorality was another area profoundly affected by the presence of the Nephilim. The combination of the giants' physical power with their corrupting influence had a devastating impact on social and moral norms. Disobedience to God's laws and sexual promiscuity became common, undermining the foundations of order and morality that God had established for humanity. The Nephilim, as beings who transcended normal limits, challenged established norms and fostered a culture of depravity. The impact of the Nephilim's presence and the associated practices was so significant that it led to widespread corruption and a complete estrangement from God. The book of Genesis recounts that human wickedness became extreme, and every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Genesis 6:5. This moral corruption was not an isolated phenomenon, but a reflection of the direct influence of the Nephilim, whose presence marked society with spiritual and ethical degradation. Given this scenario, God's decision to send the flood became an inevitable response. The flood was not only a measure of purification against human sin, but also an action to eliminate the corrupting influence of the Nephilim and the evil they perpetuated. In Genesis 6:7, God expresses his regret for creating humanity and declares that he would destroy all living creatures that move on the ground, except for Noah and his family, who were still righteous. Thus, the flood was a drastic way to cleanse the earth of evil, restoring the order and purity that had been compromised. Studying the hidden truths about the Nephilim provides a deeper understanding of the gravity of sin and corruption that spread across the earth before the flood. They were not only giants in stature, but also in impact, with their presence and influence causing a radical and negative transformation in humanity. Their story serves as a reminder of the destructive effects that can result from disobedience to God and moral corruption, as well as a warning about the importance of maintaining purity and true worship of God, away from corrupting influences that attempt to divert the human heart from the divine path. The narrative of the Nephilim continues to resonate through generations, offering lessons on the nature of divine justice and the necessity to resist temptations that can lead to spiritual and moral corruption. The story of the Nephilim underscores God's sovereignty. Despite all the influence and power of these beings, they could not thwart divine plans. The flood was proof that God has ultimate control over creation and will not allow evil to triumph forever. If you have a deep interest in the Word of God and wish to explore more on these topics, please leave your comment below. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos, which unveil the deepest secrets of the Bible. Share this video with your friends so that everyone can learn more about the truths and fascinating themes related to the offspring of fallen angels. Understanding these stories is essential to better grasp our purpose and strengthen our spiritual journey against the forces that attempt to lead us away from the Creator. May peace be with you, and see you in the next video.